the BBC presents Guilty Party. A problem in crime detection in which you are invited to match your wits with a panel of experts. John Arlott, F.R. Buckley, and Robert Fabian. First you'll hear the crime play, The Gamblers. From the various clues given in the play, the panel will decide on a line of investigation and cross-examine the suspects who give unscripted answers to their questions. This cross-examination should enable the panel to find the guilty party. But first of all, here's Joe Macready, private investigator.
The time, 6:30 p.m. The place, the London suburb. The weather, lousy. It had been raining for a solid hour and looked all set to go on doing just that for a solid week. That's when you want a taxi best. That's when everybody wants a taxi best.
Taxi!
Now, there's one pulling up.
Somebody else there. Come on, they'll do your stuff. We're getting wet.
Look, I'm just an ordinary commoner garden Canadian-born private investigator. I have no pull with taxi men. You're Inspector Galloway of Scotland Yard. Suppose you try using a bit of your influence. I don't have any. Hey, here comes a police car. You work for the same firm? Ask them to give us a lift.
Get a job, does that?
Any shopping for us?
Not likely. Getting to that shop in a hurry. Let's take a look, shall we? At least we should be out of the rain.
Yes. Come on. The shop was a small tailor's shop, and there was a small tailor inside it. He was sprawled face downwards across a wooden desk, and the back of his head wasn't a pretty sight. From the appearance of an ebony ruler that lay on the desk, it was pretty clear he wouldn't have to look any further for the blunt instrument that did the damage. There was a safe behind the desk, and it was open. The keys still in the lock. An empty safe. The tailor's name was Jaime Bergman, and he was dead.
Constable, who found the body?
I did, sir.
Tell me about it.
Well, you see, sir, I was on my rounds. It's early closing day, you see.
What time do the shops close on early closing day?
1 o'clock, sir.
Does this shop close too?
Oh, yes, sir, always. So I was trying the doors as usual, and much to my surprise, Jaime Bergman's shop door opened. I looked in and saw this.
At what time?
10 minutes ago, sir, 6:20.
And he was dead then?
Oh, yes, sir. I don't reckon he'd been dead long, though. The body's still warm and the blood's not coagulated.
Well, we'll see what the doc has to say about that. Funny. Obviously somebody doesn't know it's early closing day. Yes?
Come on, Jaime, shake yourself. We said 6:15 at the Clarence Hotel. We're all here waiting for the share-out. What are you messing at, Jaime?
The Clarence Hotel?
Of course, where else? And we're waiting. We all need that money pretty bad to get a move on.
We'll be right along. Come on, Joe. There may be a clue at the Clarence Hotel. Some people are waiting for Jaime Bergman to bring along money for a share-out. Constable, put a watch on this place and don't move anything.
Very good, sir. But whoever done this job must have been known to Jaime Bergman.
Oh, what makes you so sure?
But he kept his shop door locked and bolted and never opened it on early closing days until he'd had a very good look at who was knocking. Jaime Bergman was a very nervous man, sir. And on Wednesday afternoons he'd always tot up his cash, ready to bank it on Thursday mornings.
How do you know all this?
Because if he'd had a heavy week for cash, he always used to get me to walk with him to the bank. Sort of bodyguard.
I see. Thanks, Constable. Tell the fingerprint boys to get to work on the ruler and the safe keys. I'll be back. Come on, Joe.
At the Clarence Hotel, a private room had been booked by Jaime Bergman at 6:15. Inside it, there was a large table loaded with drinks, another large table loaded with food, and 4 people, 2 men and 2 women. The 2 women were Rose Porcher and Mrs. Gantley. The 2 men were George Barlow and Harold Carr.
Yeah, now look, this is a private room. Do you mind? The public bars are downstairs. This room's booked for a private party.
Now, let me introduce myself. I'm Detective Inspector Galloway, Scotland Yard.
What?
This is Joe Macready, private investigator.
What do the police and private eyes want with us? We hadn't done nothing.
You're waiting for Jaime Bergman, I gather.
What's that got to do with you? No crime in that.
Jaime Bergman's been murdered.
Oh, no.
You mean the money's gone? All our money?
Don't say that, Harold, for God's sake.
What money?
The share-out money. £1,400 in cash. Jaime was bringing it here to share it out. That's why we got this private room, this celebration. But the money was locked in his safe.
There was no money in the shop. The safe was open.
But how did it happen? Why?
That's what we want to find out. Tell me, would anyone else but you four know he had a large sum of money in his safe this afternoon?
No, why should they? Only us five, a syndicate. We're the only ones that'd know it. Hey, what do you mean? What do you suspect for? You don't suspect us? We was all here. Wait here.
Just a second. I think perhaps it would help our investigations if we could ask you a few questions each, alone. Now, it's been established by the police doctor that Bergman died at 5:45. We'd like you each to tell us just what you were doing then.
But why pick on us? Anybody might have walked into Jaime's shop and cost him. It's a pretty tough neighborhood, and folks knew he always counted up his cash on a Wednesday, being early closing day. Could have been anybody.
But we have reason to think it would have to be somebody he knew.
And he knew you four, apparently. So let's get started, shall we? First you, madam.
Who, me?
Yes, in the little room next door, if you please.
Oh.
We've already seen the manager. It'll be quite all right.
Our first interview was with Mrs. Gantry, an elderly lady of ample proportions with 2 red feathers in her hat and let's have no nonsense look in her eye.
Now, Mrs. Gantry, I'm sorry about all this.
I should think so, too. Anyone would imagine we were all suspects instead of being Jaime's friends and business associates.
Just what was the nature of your business?
We were a gambling syndicate.
Gambling?
Yes, that's what I said, gambling. George Barlow worked the horses, Rose Porcher looked after the dog racing, Harold Carr was responsible for football pools, and I played bridge and poker.
Where did Jaime Bergman come in, then?
We all staked a certain amount each week, Jaime included. At the end of each week, we handed over our winnings. We nearly always won handsomely. Then Jaime would invest the money in stocks and shares. Every 6 months, we'd have a share out, like tonight. Distribute our profits in cash.
Where were you at 5:45, Mrs. Gantry?
I don't understand it. Are you suggesting I might kill someone to obtain money that was mine anyway?
A fifth of it was yours. One of the syndicate might have felt that 5/5 was better than 1.
How was he killed?
Hit on the head with an ebony ruler.
Ah, then no suspicion can fall on me.
Why? Haven't you got an ebony ruler?
Isn't that? I play cards because I'm crippled with arthritis and can't move my arms and legs enough for more active pastimes. I couldn't hit a man on the head with a ruler to save my life. Ask my doctor.
All the same, where were you at 5:45?
In the bath.
Was anyone
I
else...
take my baths alone.
I mean, was there anyone in your house or flat who could vouch for that?
No, I live alone. You have my word, haven't you?
Mrs. Gantry, how far is your house from Jaime Bergman's shop?
Oh, 5 minutes in the car.
You drove here by car, did you?
With my arthritis, you'd hardly expect me to walk, would you?
Now, Mrs. Gantry, pardon my saying so, but you seem to be, well, hardly the type to be mixing with the people in the other room. Or with Jaime Bergman.
They're gamblers. So am I. And I enjoy their company. I find it preferable to a lot of other people's. Policemen, for example, and private investigators. Will that be all?
That will be all. Thank you, Mrs. Gantry. Please ask Mr. Harold Carr to come in, will you?
Harold Carr was what Dylan Thomas would have described as a small, absconding man. He was neat and quick and rabbity and over-precise.
Sit down, Mr. Carr.
I prefer to stand. After all, if I'm to be cross-examined like a criminal in the dock, I may as well behave like one.
Mr. Carr, all we want to do in everybody's interest, including your own, is to establish that you haven't behaved like a criminal.
I was very fond of Jaime Bergman. We all were. And we were all delighted with his flair for picking out investments that would make first-class capital gains. Why should any of us want to hurt him? He was a financial asset.
He was killed at 5:45. Were you around at that time?
No, I certainly was not. I was in Meriden Road in the pouring rain, changing a wheel on my car. I heard the church clock strike the 1/4 hour as I started work on it.
How long did it take you?
Well, my car doesn't have a hydraulic jacking system. I had to do it the hard way. I suppose I must have finished about 6 o'clock. Yes, about then.
Any witnesses?
No, not in that rain. Except that... Yes, just a minute. After I had finished, I went across the road to a wash and brush up place. A gentleman's lavatory.
Was there an attendant on duty?
Oh, yes. He gave me some special stuff to get the oil and dirt off my hands.
Have you seen Jaime Bergman previously today?
No.
Did you know he'd have this money in his shop?
Well, naturally. Early closing day was his accounting day, when he added up his cash. And of course it was after bank hours, so one would know he must have the share-out money with him.
What is your own financial situation at the moment?
Not terribly satisfactory. Seeing Jaime make money on the stock exchange tempted me to try and do the same thing. I soon found out I did not possess Jaime's natural flair for that sort of thing.
£1,400 would have helped you.
£1,400 would help anybody.
How far is Jaime's shop from this place in Meriden Road where you repaired your puncture?
Oh, about a quarter of an hour's drive in the car. More in heavy traffic.
You won't mind if we check up on your car, will you? Just to make sure a wheel has been changed.
I have nothing to conceal whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Ask Miss Porcher to come in, will you, please?
Rose Porcher was an attractive young woman of about 27, with a nice figure and no inhibitions about displaying it to the best possible advantage.
Now, Miss Porcher, I'm sorry about all this, but...
Look, before we go any further, you'd better know that I went to see Jaime this afternoon.
Oh? What time?
About 4 o'clock.
Why?
I wanted him to give George some money.
George?
George Barlow. Him and me are sort of that way about each other. We've been trying to get some money together to set up house.
But I thought you'd got quite a lot of money coming to you today.
Yes, but you see, George had a red-hot tip yesterday that a horse was certain to win. It was 10-1 and a dead cert. Couldn't lose.
Go on.
Well, George didn't want the syndicate to be in on it. And he hadn't got the money, so he borrowed it from the place where he works.
Borrowed it?
Well, he meant to put it back today, soon as he got the winnings.
How much did he take?
£100. And he'd got to put it back today before 5 o'clock when they had the weekly cash check.
What happened to the horse?
Dropped dead halfway round the course when it was leading the 4 lengths. So we asked Jaime to give him an advance of 100 off what he was going to collect today. Jaime wouldn't. Then I tried to persuade him, but he just wouldn't.
Did you and Jaime have a row?
I told him what I thought of him. And of course he said George was really double-crossing the syndicate, keeping a dead cert bet to himself, so he must take the consequence.
Miss Porcher, when you went to see Jaime at 4, was his front door locked?
Yes. He unlocked it to let me in.
And locked it again after you left?
Locked and bolted it.
Would you say that Jaime wouldn't let anyone into his shop unless he knew them?
Not on a Wednesday afternoon. We all knew that. He wouldn't even serve a customer. Funny like that he was.
Tell me, was the safe shut when you were there?
Oh, yes. I didn't kill him, though. Honest. No, George.
How can you be so sure about George? Were you with him after you left Jaime until you arrived at the Clarence?
No, I phoned and told him the bad news, and he said not to worry, he'd take care of everything. But George wouldn't kill.
Right. Let's have George Barlow in. You can stay with us, Miss Porcher. Only don't speak unless you're spoken to. Mr. Barlow, we understand from Miss Porcher that you needed money badly this afternoon.
Well, not badly enough to kill for it. What you been saying then, Rosegill?
Only the truth, George, and that you've never killed nobody.
Right, too.
When she told you she couldn't persuade Jaime to fight with £100, you said not to worry, you'd take care of things.
Sure I did. So I did the only thing I could do. Went and told the boss I'd borrowed the 100, but we'll put it back tonight.
What did the boss say?
Sacked me on the spot. And said if the money wasn't back with him by 7:30 tonight, he'd tell the police.
You certainly had reason to dislike Jaime, then. So what did you do when the boss sacked you?
Well, it was about 5:15. I walked about a bit thinking like, and it started to pour with rain, so I went into the Elite News Cinema.
Well, again? We went there last night.
Well, what else could I do to kill time? The meeting wasn't until 6:15, and I got no Macintosh.
You didn't go and see Jaime at all this evening?
No, I saw him at dinner time. He was real nasty. So I asked Rose to try.
The Elite News Cinema is only about 2 minutes' walk from here. Anybody speak to you? Anybody there able to support your statement?
I wouldn't know. I was just one of a queue at the box office going in. People was getting out of the rain like me. I was just one of the crowd.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Barlow. And you, Miss Porcher. Well, dear, let's get to work.
So we got to work. 1 or 2 other facts were checked on. First, the fingerprints on the safe key were those of Jaime Bergman. There were no fingerprints on the ebony ruler. Second, we checked on Harold Carr's puncture story. The wheel had been changed recently, and the punctured tire was in the boot. The dust and dried mud on the wheel of the puncture matched up with similar dust and dried mud on Carr's gloves. The attendant at the gentleman's wash and brush-up department confirmed Carr's story insofar as it affected him. And that was the lot. Oh, yes, Mrs. Gantry's doctor confirmed that she suffered with arthritis, though not as badly as she imagined. But he said that with old ladies as rich and influential as Mrs. Gantry, one didn't argue too much. And that was all we had to go on.
Well, listeners, there's the problem. Who killed Jaime Bergman? And now, here's scriptwriter Edward J. Mason to introduce the suspects.
And the suspects in this particular case are, of course, Mrs. Gantry, Miss Rose Porcher, Mr. Harold Carr, and Mr. George Barlow. They're all here waiting, trembling, ready to be interrogated. So now over to you, John Arlott, and let's see if you and your panel of experts can decide who is the guilty party.
Thank you, Ted. Then the first suspect we'd like to question is George Barlow. Now, George, is it your custom to go to the same cinema twice?
Not usually.
What made you do it on this occasion?
Well, nowhere else to go.
Why couldn't you have gone along to the hotel?
Well, we're meeting here till 6:15.
You could have sat in the lounge, couldn't you?
Well, it's not all that nice, you know.
Well, it saved you some money.
But, George, where did you get the £100 from your film? Well, the cash, why? Do you deal with the cash book? Oh, yes. On the manager. Ever done it before? Well, not really. Not like you might say, you know. And you got the sack at 5:15? Yes. But the ultimatum from the boss was that, if you didn't put it back to 7:30, he'd call the police. That's right.
Well, has he called the police? You didn't get it back by 7:30, did you, as it turned out?
Well, I've been with the police ever since. Now with you, gentlemen.
How were you going to get the money to him?
Oh, I'd have found a way.
Well, your plan was as soon as he paid it over at 6:15, you were going to belt off and pay it back to the boss, right?
Well, after a bit, yes. I got to 10:30, you know.
Yes, you got no reason.
What happened when he went and saw Jaime? Oh, he raised the roof. He talked about blowing the whole syndicate to pieces, you know, and chucking me out, and things like that.
But you went in first of all at lunchtime, didn't you?
Yeah.
With Rose?
No, oh no, by
You went
myself.
in alone then?
Yeah.
And she went in alone
I closed the
afterwards?
shop at 12:30 and went along there.
Yeah, she went along then alone afterwards.
Yeah. And he got the money then, do you know? I don't know.
Did you ask him?
No. I know he's always got plenty about. I knew if he, you know, if he would, you know, but he didn't.
But surely once you came out and you got the sack and you were within 2 minutes of Jaime's shop, it was the most natural thing in the world to go in and ask him to give you the £100 so that you could go and square the debt.
Well, that's what I did. At 12:30. He wouldn't hear it. Well, he knew what I wanted it for.
You didn't get the sack till 5:15.
No.
There's no good going back to the money then, I suppose you thought, because you had already got the sack.
Well, of course.
What's well, George? I wonder if we might now have a word with Mrs. Gantry. Hello, Mrs. Gantry.
Good evening, gentlemen.
How's your arthritis today?
Wicked.
It's very distressing, isn't it?
The foul thing. Troubles me very much.
Do you have any difficulty? You say you can hardly move, yet you took a bath in your apartment all alone.
Well, I find it very difficult. It takes me a long time.
You do find it?
Yes, I do.
But you can get in and out of the bath without assistance.
Well, I have handles each side.
I see. You say it takes you a long time to bath. I presume it also takes you a long time to dress, does it?
Yes, it does.
And yet you are still in the bath, 5 minutes away from the hotel, only half an hour before
No, an hour.
place.
From 5 to 6 it took me to get ready.
But you said you were in the bath at 5:45.
Well, it might have been earlier than I was in the bath. I know that it generally takes me an hour to have a bath.
But you should have bath, let's be fair.
Yes, about.
But in short, you don't know when you were in the bath and when you got out, do you?
Well, if I was quite alone and there was nobody there, you only got my word for it.
Your route to the hotel from home take you past Jaime's shop.
No, it doesn't, no.
Would it have occurred to you, since it was raining heavily, to go in and off from the lift?
I'm afraid it wouldn't. I'm afraid I was late. I imagine you might be there, waiting.
Very well enough, Mrs. Gantry. Thank you very much. I wonder if we might now speak to Harold Carr.
How fond of Jaime were you? I was very fond of him indeed, as we all were. He was a most lovable little man, with a great warmth of humanity.
But you must have envied him his remarkable ability with the stock market.
Indeed I did.
Yes. Now, you tried to emulate him and didn't quite...
Unfortunately, no.
Yes. Now, when had you lost this money? How long before?
Well, it was over a period of time.
Yes.
Not it was one of those things that mounted up.
Quite. But when did you know you were severely in the hole?
Well, I wasn't exactly severely in the hole. I was nearly lost £200 or £300 that I'd hoped to...
Exactly. Well, how much were you in the hole?
About 300.
About 300. Your share of this money would have covered it, would it?
Yes, just about. Where did you have your puncher? Meriden Road.
Meriden Road.
And how far is that from Heine's shop?
About 15 minutes.
You were driving through the rain before you got your puncture.
It was raining when the puncture happened, yes.
How long has it been raining then?
5 or 10 minutes.
Has there been showers earlier in the day?
Not to my knowledge. There may have been in other parts of London, I don't know.
I noticed that you said when you went to this wash place, you went to wash, I think you said grease and stuff off your hands.
Yes.
You said nothing about mud. Is that because you wear gloves or something?
Well, I started changing the wheel with my gloves on, and then I realized I should do them no good. And noticing this lavatory opposite, I thought I could take my gloves off and clean my hands afterwards, which is what I did.
Yes, well now, is the Clarence Hotel on the way from Meriden Road to Heine's or in the other direction?
It's the other direction.
What time did you get to the hotel?
About 10 or 12 minutes past.
Was anybody else there?
I went upstairs and Mr. Barlow and Miss Porcher and Mrs. Gantry had already arrived.
They were all there, in other words, before 10 minutes past 6.
Well, maybe 11 or 12, I couldn't say to a minute.
All right, good enough. Thank you. And now perhaps we could speak to Miss Porcher. This was rather a desperate situation, Miss Porcher, for you, wasn't it?
Well, it was rather. I mean, me and George hoping to get married, like.
Oh, you were there at 4 o'clock, did you, Miss Porter?
That's right, yes.
And you pleaded with him for money for George?
Yes, I did.
And
absolutely no good.
You met with just a flat refusal?
Absolutely.
I mean, did you telephone George?
Yes, I did. I went straight out about 10 past, I think.
Yeah.
Rang him up, told him what had happened.
Yeah.
Then I had to go round to the hairdresser for my boss. Wanted me to try out a rival firm as he just come in the next street.
And you did notice that the safe was shut then, didn't you?
Oh, yes, it was.
Definitely shut. 10 past 4, that is.
Yes, yes.
Were the keys in the safe when you were there?
No.
You looked then, did you?
Well, I noticed it. It's not a very big room, you know. You've got to edge around it.
Did Harvey tell you he'd got the money already from the bank?
Well, no, it never came up. I mean, we just took it for granted it was there. I mean, it always was on share out there. Where else could he get it from? Bank was shut by then.
But he let you go round behind him, between him and the safe, did he?
No, the safe was behind me. I came and sat in the chair just in front of it.
Was the ruler there? Did you see it?
I didn't notice it.
Well, there's the producer's signal, so let's say to Ted Mason, all right, Ted, here are your suspects back.
And while John Arlott and his 2 expert associates deliberate about the identity of the guilty party, you may like me to run over the suspects once more for the benefit of you people at home. Well, to begin with, we had Mrs. Gantry, that old dragon who had opportunity, but on the face of it, not very much motive. There's the voluptuous Miss Rose Porcher with the orange hair. She had, because she loved George Barlow, motive, and she also had opportunity. Barely beef-eating George Barlow, the butcher, he had both motive and opportunity, especially if he was lying when he said he went to the cinema. Lastly, we have prim, precise Mr. Harold Carr, who had motive, certainly, but on the face of things, as they're presented, he doesn't seem to have had very much opportunity. Well, those are the 4 suspects, and whatever you may think at home about the identity of the guilty party, I can see from the look in John Arlott's eye that he is now ready to disclose what he and his 2 experts think. Come in, please, John Arlott.
Well, there's a fine tone of irony about the word experts, as far as we're concerned, Ted, but we plump for Harold Carr.
Why?
On these grounds, he says, how was he killed? He's not told, and then he refers to Cushing. Secondly, although, presumably, the car is examined as soon as possible afterwards, the spare tire is found to have dried mud on it, and not wet mud, as we would expect from a tire that had been changed in absolute pouring rain and was being driven through pouring rain for 10 minutes. If he'd used gloves to start with and got mud on them, why didn't he go on? But to use both gloves and bare hands seems to us not quite to hang together, and we think what happened is that he certainly did have a puncture and change a wheel, but not at 5:45. We think that happened probably before the rain started, hence the mud was dry. And then he thought up the alibi by having changed the wheel, gone to Heine's shop, coshed him, taken the money, driven out to Meriden Road, and got a 6 o'clock alibi and then driven back. This, I must say, seems to us the likeliest of these explanations that it is Harold Carr.
Well, I'll put you out of your misery. You're 100% correct on this occasion. You had 3 clues and you got 2 of them. You got the fact that he knew that Jaime had been coshed, although he hadn't been told, and your deductions about the car and the dried mud are absolutely accurate. It happened exactly as you said. The one little clue that you did miss was the fact that Carr was the first person who said, "You mean to say the money's gone?" when the 2 detectives came in and they said nothing at all about the money. All they said was that Jaime was killed. In other words, he knew that the money had gone, he knew that Jaime had been coshed, and he made a sad mistake about the dried mud on the wheel and the gloves.
I've got that note written down by his name, money gone.
Yes, but that doesn't count.
No, it doesn't.
Anyway, congratulations. Next one is very much harder.
In that edition of Guilty Party, the panel was John Arlott, F.R. Buckley, and Robert Fabian. Edward J. Mason wrote the crime play The Gamblers, and the program was produced by Tony Schreier for the BBC.